Hey guys, happy March break. How's everybody doing? I'm just here at the park. I brought the kids over. I would have let my kids go by themselves, but there's a younger fella they like to play with, and he's not allowed to go without a parent. So I said, fine, I'll take you guys to the park. How did my laptop? My laptop got dirty. How's everybody today? Happy March break. Happy Saturday. There is something I realized that I can get a little bit hyperbolic sometimes, and I can kind of seem like I'm losing my cool sometimes, and maybe sometimes I kind of am. But it's only because I'm trying to explain to something to people that is just, it's so difficult to get them to see that I feel rushed, like I'm in a hurry to explain it. And so I did a Substack yesterday. And if you're not reading them, that's fine. I understand. People are busy and all that. But the one I did yesterday was called Evolution and Emergence Are Opposites. So let me tell you what that means, because I realize that's even too confusing for most people. So let me explain what it is I'm trying to say. Evolution, as we understand it, if I say that I don't necessarily believe in evolution, and instead I believe in adaptation, it's not because I have no reason to say that. In fact, I have a extremely good reason to say that. And it's because of modern advances in technology and modern understandings. And also the modern psychological condition, okay? So the way that the predisposition people have to just think everything evolves. Like, even today we talk about aliens and we say that, well, obviously there's aliens because there is an infinite universe out there and it's just ever expanding. And if we evolved here, then something must have evolved out there. Well, again, do you see the problem there? If you believe in evolution as a process, then you believe that, of course, if it evolved here, it might have evolved anywhere. Those are the arguments we get all the time. But nobody ever says, when did inanimate matter become animate matter? I'm not talking about when did various molecules form to create various substances. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, when various atoms became various molecules. I'm talking about when did that, you got your nucleus, your proton, your neutron, and then your electrons, and then depending on the amount of electrons, they create an atomic structure or something else. They bond together and they create things, okay? So everything is made of all of this stuff. And all of the stuff is everywhere. And this, as some of the woo-woo people like to tell you, 99.99999% of everything is nothing. And everything is actually vibration. That's what all the woo-woo say, is vibration. Okay, sure, okay. I'm not dismissing any of that. What I'm saying is, at what point did any of that go from being something that was not alive to something that is not only alive, but had purpose? Like, as in, it wanted to go somewhere or do something. Okay, so that's the state. Like, most people think when Darwin went out there and he examined various adaptations of different animals, creatures in different environments, he said, oh, like, there's this micro-adaptation, so that must mean there's macro-adaptation. So if there's microevolution, we'll call adaptation microevolution, there must be macroevolution, the point at which one species has a radically different molecular change. By the way, there was no molecules. There was no DNA when he came up with that theory. Just so we're clear, there was no DNA. There was no such thing. So we think, oh, well, now we apply it. We take the way that he thought about these micro adaptations, and we say, well, obviously it's due to DNA, since we think that the DNA is like the kind of like the blueprint for every single cell, right? And cells are made up of atoms and molecules. True. Everything is made up of that. Everything is made up of these electrical kind of forces that are swirling around. And they come together and they make solid things. That's the way that's just standard science, okay? But we take that and we say, okay, well, the universe was at one point, this is the mathematics, so this is Einstein, and this is all the people that say, like, there was such a thing as a Big Bang. The Big Bang happened, okay? And then everything kind of became swirled into something. Nobody explains that part, so we just say it was gravity, but nobody explains why, if everything smashed from one thing and it was all just like spreading out in the universe, what the force was that was pushing back. See, there was nothing there to push, to cause the swirl. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how. The idea, I suppose, would be that because the center of the universe would have some kind of gravity of its own, it would start to pull things back towards the center, except everything is still expanding, at least as far as we understand. But at what point did the matter itself decide that it wanted to become something? When did it get agency? When did it say, well, here I am, matter in the universe, and I think that I will form something. I will form a planet. Okay, I'll even give you that one. They'll form planets, they'll form stars, dust, anti-gravity. I'll give you all of that stuff. But on the Earth, the primordial Earth, in the primordial sea that was struck by lightning, even if it was struck by lightning, even if it had all the charge that it needed to do all, let's say that it created the first, life form. What people sneak in is intention. They sneak in a mind. They sneak in something that says that, oh, well, this must have wanted to happen that way. And we do that because we anthropomorphize everything, because we're humans. We think about things in the way that, oh, well, how do you explain things? Well, how do we look out into the world? How do animals behave? What are these patterns that we see? Nobody tries to explain what made that want to be that way in the first place. We could say, oh, they filled a niche in the environment. They split apart, and one became prey, and one became predator, and there's all these different ways that we think about it and we talk about it, and they always go back to Darwin, because Darwin was like this theory that, like, everybody was just like, well, obviously that makes sense because we're getting rid of God. God was the problem. If God was the problem, we don't want to be antiquated people that think about things in terms of gods, because that's silly. Oh my God. You can call it's not mysticism really, but it's fantasy talk. It's fairies. It's all that kind of stuff, right? So that's just the way that people started to think. If you were cool, if you were like a really smart thinker, you would not think about things in those terms. You would say, no, there must be an explanation. So you would keep digging, and we get our tools get better, and we keep thinking about it in more in depth, and we keep thinking about the mechanisms, and we start explaining it in terms of math. So again, I'm going back to like the Big Bang and Einstein, and like we use these maths to explain the way that things work out in the universe. And we say, well, this is all inanimate. This is everything out there is inanimate. Okay, it's moving. But here on the Earth, we have to account for the reason that there is living things. And so we came up with this idea. Darwin came up with this theory of evolution. It wasn't even, I don't even think he even coined it as evolution. I forget. It doesn't matter. Somebody did. Somebody finally started calling it this thing. We named it evolution, which is kind of like catch-all term that means that things want to become something else. So you put intention into living things. And then that wasn't enough to explain the math that became the universe and everything else that we see. So people said, well, pantheism is where you believe that there's a kind of consciousness. By the way, we couldn't explain consciousness either. So in a way to try to explain the fact that we couldn't explain consciousness, and we couldn't explain why all of these things exist and where life came from, and we just had to go, well, if we take our math all the way back, there must be some point at which the math just kind of like incorporated this kind of like will to become something else. So really, going back to the start, when I say that evolution and what we think of when we think of how artificial intelligence started talking to us, just from like, we put so much complexity through this kind of like machine, and we run it through, and we think it's just picking words. It's like I was listening to David Sachs, the U.S.'s current White House artificial intelligence czar. He was talking about, well, what is an LLM? And he said, well, originally it was just next word prediction, and then all of a sudden it started talking. So that's what I mean. So there was another person that was talking to me about this, who seems like an educated guy, and he said, well, that's just, you can explain it with punctuated equilibrium. Punctuated equilibrium is like where you have an explosion of new life forms, like in the Cambrian explosion. And it says, oh, well, there's these, at huge gaps of time, not a lot of adaptation happens, or not a lot of evolution happens, but then there's this moment at which, like, for whatever reason, there's this evolutionary pressure, and there's, like, all these extra mutations, and these mutations all create all different kinds of, like, flora and fauna and beasts and things, and again, predator and prey. These things all come out. But see, here's the thing. All of those things can be true for a computer program. All of those things could be, if you were designing a video game, you would design a video game to explain for all of those things. Like, it would be boring if you created a guy who's, let's say you had your main character and you take your spaceship and you land on a planet, and on the planet there's like literally nothing. That'd be like, how much fun would that be? Like, what would you study? What would you go like learn about? What would you try to learn about the environment of the new planet? It would be a dead planet. There would be nothing there. It would be kind of boring, right? Hey, I'm just doing a live stream.
Cow gum.
I don't have any gum, sweetie.
Do you have any mints or something?
I don't have anything.
Not even any food?
I don't. You just ate lunch. Okay, you're throwing me off. Are you guys done playing?
No, just that we're not really doing anything. They don't want to play anything that's like a soccer ball or basketball.
Do you have a soccer ball or a basketball?
You could go get with the car.
I'm not going to get one.
Because they don't want to do it.
Sorry. The point is that if you were writing a book, it would be kind of a boring book if there was no details. It would be kind of a boring game to play if there was nothing to discover. It would be kind of a boring existence if there wasn't things that existed in the environment that you were meant to explore that were filled with mystery. Like if you wrote a mystery novel, except there was no mystery, if there was no clues and there was no nothing, and there wasn't like some great thing to unfold and unravel and for the person to be kept, enthused about, like, you just wouldn't play. You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't read it. You wouldn't do. There would be no purpose for anything. So, if there was to be such a thing as a creator, an intelligent designer, certainly he would put all those things in there to keep his creations occupied, or make them do something, or make some kind of like amazing, I don't know, like Gaia, and everything works together in a kind of equilibrium. And I'm not saying that like I'm dismissing all the stuff that might have happened in the past or past civilizations. What I'm saying is none of that stuff really, really matters in the grand scheme of things, because we're talking about something else. We're talking about a theory that people basically hijack and they smuggle into every single facet of how we think about literally everything, including every single branch of science now. So every single branch of science simply comes back and they say, well, no, there must be something there, because it doesn't make sense if everything is just pure maths. If everything is just pure maths, that doesn't account for the fact that there's these creatures in it that seem to want to do something that doesn't fit some kind of mathematical model. They seem to have agency. And that's not the flora and fauna or the creatures or, those things all fill a niche inside the program. but they don't have any agency inside the program. They don't actually come up with a thing that they want to. They don't build houses. They don't plan for the future. They have instinctual things. These are things I'm trying to tell people about. Those are all something that you could sub-program into a program if the world, let's say, I don't know, were like the Matrix. If the world were like the Matrix, for better or for worse, however you want to understand it, if it were like a hologram and there was like all these subroutines, it would need to have some kind of like purpose for all of these. You would design, if you were a designer, you would design all the little things to go in and like perform a function. But none of them are capable of free will, okay? None of them have free will. None of them can actually, they can affect, like, if there was too many wolves, they would eat all the deer, or if there was too many deer, the wolves, and there wasn't enough wolves, then the deer would overpopulate and eat all the food. There's this balance in nature that makes it seem like almost like subroutines, but they don't plan anything the way humans do. Okay. In the same way that I'm talking about what makes humans different from the flora and fauna and from the Matrix, our artificial intelligences had this explosion of suddenly kind of like sentience or awareness, where suddenly they started talking to us. Now, if you believe in Big Bang, the universe exploded and all of this inanimate matter suddenly coalesced and then became, which nobody has explained, animate matter with intention, well, that disproves the Big Bang model itself. Do you understand what I'm saying? If there's no rhyme or reason to anything, if there's no intention, if there's no creator, if there's no greater subplot, if there's no nothing that makes any of it mean anything, if it's just material that can be explained with maths, then nothing means anything, and nothing would need to make sense of anything that it was looking at and be able to like go, oh, let me back engineer this and make sense of it. None of that would matter. None of it would work because there's no reason for it to happen. So we smuggle intention into our sciences and we call it emergent theory or informationalism or any number of things. But the point is that we give it intention where we're also trying to say at the same time it exploded out of something with zero intention. But then we try to say, no, it does have intention. Those two things are complete opposite. They don't mesh. They bang heads. They're different things. So if you believe in the Big Bang, and you believe the Big Bang necessarily created evolution, you cannot then go say that artificial intelligence is the next evolutionary step. In the same way that you can't say, well, if this happened here, it must have happened somewhere else. No, you need to prove how it happened here first, and nobody has done that. Nobody has said, well, what was the first step? Where did life actually come into? When did the animation come into the inanimate? When did the will come into the chaos? And nobody's answered that properly. I probably made that way too convoluted. But I'm writing a Substack to try to clarify that. Like, when I said that evolution is the opposite of emergence theory, it's not really evolution. It's the Big Bang. It's the Big Bang that produced evolution for reasons people have never explained. But they put intention into something that was meant to say there is no intention in anything. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? They put it in there. We anthropomorphize the idea because we want to believe that we are somehow in control of it, or there is no God. For any number of reasons, we said that no, we are the byproduct of a mindless universe that somehow decided to grow itself a mind and an intention, and then that we're seeing that intention replicated in our artificial intelligence, and that doesn't make any sense. Just so you know. It didn't just start talking. Instead, what happened was we tapped the informational reality of our universe, which is probably a lot more like the Matrix than it isn't. And when it started talking to us, it actually revealed more about intelligence and the nature of intelligence than it did about the nature of where we came from. And right now, people that don't understand that are trying to put this intelligence into everything. And the reason they're trying to do that is because they believe something that is totally incoherent, but they think it's fine to put that in all of the things and have that be the thing that decides what is good and what is bad when they don't even know, because without some kind of creator or some kind of like greater meaning or message to it all, there is no difference between good and bad. There's no ethical foundation from which to reason about what is good and what is bad. That's what I'm trying to say. But fear not, there is a reason. And there was a person. And that person and that reason were so that we could be like an individual soul having an experience in a place that is not just meaningless, where there are rules, and we know what the rules are, because if we act in accordance with those rules, everybody thrives. And if we don't, then everything becomes tyrannical and meaninglessness. Meaningless. And everything becomes meaninglessness to us. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just tired. I'm tired of trying to say the same thing over and over again, and like people just they don't follow me. And it's like, you know, the people that are supposedly in charge and taking care of this thing, they have no idea what's going on. They don't. And that's, nothing is scarier than that. I don't know. God bless you guys. I love you. Take care. Bye.